Welcome to Four Downs, our game recap episode of Flight Plan. It's never easy for the Jets. They had a chance for a dramatic comeback that would have led to a turnaround of the season, all these things. Instead, it's a gut punch loss in London, and they put themselves in a giant hole. 23-17, they go down. This is the Flight Plan podcast. Tim McMaster along with Zack Rosenblatt, Jets reporter at The Athletic. Zach, do bad, frustrating Jets performances feel different when you're in London?
No, that's a good question. Yeah, there's like a slight accent to it now. The terminology is different.
The lost drives on the left side of the road.
I will say before we get into the game, it was a really cool atmosphere. So I've covered a game at Wembley. I would say the crowds and like the media contingent has gotten a lot bigger. Like I was blown away at how much media was there. I think a lot of it was UK media. We even had 2 athletic reporters from the UK that were there. Actually, they were cool guys. But yeah, the crowd, I think it was mostly Vikings fans. I would say they dominated it. There was a lot of Jets fans I saw around town and stuff, but the Vikings fans were louder. They were the home team, so they had some of the advantage there. And I think they got more like tickets for like season ticket holders and stuff. And they had their mascot and they had the drum thing that they do and the air horn, which were all right in front of the media section. We were in the stadium. But it was really loud. It was a fun atmosphere and a very disappointing effort by the New York Jets, specifically their quarterback, who we're going to get into. But, it felt like a Zach Wilson Jets type game, weirdly, where you have a quarterback turning the ball over too much, mixed in with some flashes of, maybe they're figuring it out at the end, starting slow, defense doing their job, offense not. Like, it's all the same story. And it's just, this was a game that it felt like they were going to get blown out, and they didn't get blown out, and they had a chance to win, and instead they lost. Like if they had won this game, like I don't know if it would have been an exaggeration to say it might have like saved their season. Like I know it's very early in the year, but like this has the ability to go off the rails pretty quickly, especially with their schedule coming up. And if they had pulled that off, I saw a stat, and we'll get into our 4 downs in a minute, but I saw a stat that the Jets had lost before this game, had lost 96 games in a row when they were trailing by 17 points or more. And so they nearly snapped that streak, but instead it's 97. I believe the last time was like 2001. I think it was like one of those crazy games at the Dolphins. I think it's like a famous game in Jets history, but yeah, it just felt like the same old stuff, and we'll get into what people said after the game and all that. But I feel bad for Jets fans, man. There was a lot of excitement coming into this year. You and I were pretty optimistic on this team, and I don't feel very optimistic right now, and it's unfortunate, but we can get into it.
Yeah, it's hard to after that game, that's for sure. All is not lost. It is just 5 games, but it could be so much different when you think about this game and then you think about the Broncos game, 2 very winnable games, and suddenly this team is 4-1 instead of 2-3. All right, let's get into the downs. First down, slow start, and bad Aaron Rodgers, which you talked about. The Jets trailed 17-0 in this game in the second quarter. Rodgers' first quarter numbers, mind-blowing, Zach. 3 of 9, 16 yards, 2 interceptions, one of those a pick 6, a 2.8 quarterback rating. Those are Zach Wilson, Sam Darnold type Jets numbers. Those are like seeing ghost type numbers. It was there. The ball was like flying all over the place. The accuracy was off. Obviously you're there in the locker room after the game. Just what was the talk around what was going on, at least early on for Aaron Rodgers? Yeah, slip of the tongue.
Yeah, I think that they were not ready for the blitzing for some reason again, and this goes into preparation. We've criticized the coaching staff lately because I think they've not done a good job of getting that offense prepared, and it's gone back the entire solid tenure, whether it's Hackett or LaFleur. The offense, sometimes the defense, but the offense is just not ready at the start of games for what's coming. And so the offensive line had a really bad game again. They're starting to look like the offensive line of old. I don't really know. I haven't gone back and like watched or looked at the numbers specifically yet. I don't know who specifically was really bad on the O-line. I did see AVT give up a bad pressure at one point, but Rodgers got hit something like 8 times. But anyway, so the blitzes are coming. They're not handling them well. Rodgers under pressure a lot. That's not the excuse. His first pass to Garrett Wilson, he misses him pretty bad. That's on the first drive. And then you get into this game and he has this pick 6 where this was a Rodgers mess up through and through. Like he explained it as like he was looking at something else and he forgot to like keep track of where Van Ginkel was. And that's the linebacker. And so he goes to like throw a quick pass, like it was going to be really fast because they'd been blitzing to Garrett Wilson, and he did not see Van Ginkel there. So Van Ginkel jumps it, gets the interception, brings it back for like a 64-yard touchdown. I think this is the same guy that had a pick six against the Giants, I believe, earlier this year too. And then on the next drive, another really bad throw by him. He airmails it over Alan Lazard's head. Like these are just not Aaron Rodgers throws. And, maybe something's bothering him, but you can't really make all the excuses for him. Like he's shown signs of, aging, it mixed in with the amazing stuff that he can still do, because he still does have the arm talent that's not going to go away. Like as long as he's not getting hit, I think he can make the plays. But, Rodgers was missing guys over and over again. And it was to the point where who Rodgers is blaming for a mess up a lot because he'll glare at them or throw his arms up. He was walking off the field. He was like grabbing like the collar of his jersey, like frustrated. He's shaking his head, sitting on the bench, not alone, but like with the other quarterbacks, not really talking to anyone, just looking at the iPad. And, the vibes are really bad. And it took a while for it to get better. It took them going down 17-0, the defense stepping up, forcing some turnovers for them to finally start turning it around. But, it was just a really bad start to the game. They got themselves in the hole. They talk about this all the time. When you get yourself in a hole, this offense, get away from the running game. The running game has been awful. We're going to talk about that later. Offensive line bad. Receivers, Alan Lazard had 4 drops. I don't know if it'll be officially charged as 4, but I counted 4. And it's just very disappointing that after, a couple weeks ago against the Patriots, just aggressive game plan, smart play calling by Hackett and Rodgers. Clearly something is off between, there was a thing last week where Mike Garafolo reported this, and I'd heard this, but that the way Hackett and Rodgers go about it is basically Hackett gives Aaron 3 plays to choose from, and then Aaron chooses one, and they go with that. I guess that's not that uncommon for like a veteran quarterback, but I don't know. That seems extreme. And also, I think you're starting to see, and I've kind of alluded to being concerned about this in the offseason. Everybody was all excited about the idea that Rodgers is the one running the offense, but he has to play quarterback too. Like he can't be the play caller and the quarterback. Like I'm sorry. Like you need an offensive play caller that is more reliable than Nathaniel Hackett. And so it was just a very bland, boring, confusing game plan. One of the worst plays that they ran this entire game was in the second quarter, 4th and 2. They're something like the 26-yard line in Vikings territory. Kick a field goal, get easy points. They're not really moving the ball very well at all. The running game has been awful, and they decide to run it on 4th down, like a regular halfback dive with Braylon Allen, and he gets stuffed, and they don't get a first down. And if they have those 3 points, then their approach at the very end of the game is much different. And you don't have Aaron Rodgers trying to force the ball to Mike Williams. He underthrows him, really bad interception to end the game. And instead, you're maybe playing for a field goal because then that would have tied the game. So, these are the kind of decisions that come back to bite you. And Robert Saleh, Nathaniel Hackett, and Aaron Rodgers all have a hand in their loss today.
It was bad. Now, the overall numbers for Rodgers by the end of the game, he threw it a ton. I think at one point they threw it 19 straight times in the fourth quarter, but 29 of 54, 244,
yeah,
2
a lot
touchdowns,
of pass attempts.
3 interceptions. Also took a beating. You mentioned it. I think it was 11 quarterback
11,
hits
you're right. Yeah, it was 11.
on the Vikings, 4 sacks, and some of them bad. I mean, there was the one moment where he gets injured, right? He lets out this kind of scream. He's bent over backwards. It looks like he's heading to the medical tent. The Jets get the ball back, and he comes back on the field, but he did not come out unscathed, right? It seems like it's a low ankle sprain for Rodgers, which better than a high ankle sprain, but still not great.
Yeah, I in my story that actually just published right before we went live, there was a moment in the game where after that play where he hurt himself and he came up limping. He was very gimpy. He's walking the sideline. The trainer's trying to get him to go to the medical tent, takes off his helmet. He's starting to go over. And then they were about to punt the ball away. And then Thomas Morstead gets hit. So the offense gets a first down. And so Rodgers, as he's about to go into the tent, he says, screw this, runs back out on the field. It really felt like, okay, is this about to be like a moment? Is it going to be like I had the headline in my head, like the drive that saved the Jets season, and that was going to be my whole story. And I was like, that's actually kind of fun thing to write, and everybody will be happy again after the way he started that game. And he led them on a scoring drive. Still, they got a field goal at the end of it. But yeah, after that, it didn't go as well. And Rodgers was clearly bothered by that, and he was still kind of sore from last week. They did a weird roster thing where they called up Adrian Martinez this week. I think it was insurance, but it was, I don't know if maybe they had a plan for a package for him too, and it just didn't pan out. And as a result of that, Malachi Corley was a healthy scratch already, which after all the hype he got pre-draft and not pre-draft, post-draft, I should say, didn't have a good summer, but not ideal that he's already a healthy scratch when this offense is struggling. But Rodgers clearly banged up, fighting through it. He powered through it. He played pretty well for the most part from that point on until the last interception. But yeah, low ankle sprain. I imagine that's going to be something that bothers him. If he's old, he's getting hit a lot. He's creaky. He's a guy. I mean, as you get older, I mean, I'm only 34, but I feel it. When if I lay on the wrong side of the bed, I wake up sore on half my body sometimes. So I can't imagine how he's feeling, and it's going to be a slog getting him through the season. If this is what the offensive line is, and maybe they're just missing Morgan Moses, I don't know, like maybe more than I expected. But if this is how the offensive line is going to play, and this is how they're going to handle blitz, everybody's going to blitz them. If this is how easy,
yeah, that's what I was going to say. The blitzes are going to keep coming until you figure it out.
Exactly. So it's concerning. I'm not. It doesn't sound like they're worried about his health, like in terms of like missing any time or anything, but it's just something to keep an eye on because over time he might not be able to run as much if he keeps getting hurt in his lower body area.
So almost a Willis Reed game for Aaron Rodgers, but no.
Second down.
All right, you referenced it, but second down is no running game, which when this offense was at its best, we saw this two-headed monster, this great attack, not just running the ball, but also receiving out of the backfield. They did a little bit of that in this game, but Braylon Allen, 5 carries, 13 yards. Breece Hall, 9 carries, 23 yards. Robert Saleh after the game said the running game wasn't good enough, which when I think about Robert Saleh post game, that's about as harsh as he gets, right? Like, I mean, he's to a fault, like positive about his guys backing them up. For
fans are not happy
for him
about
to just say that's not good enough is bad.
Yeah, Breece has not. I think over the last 3 weeks, I think he's averaging something like 2.3 yards a carry. He has not looked like himself. He's not looked explosive. He had one run where he went for 10 yards late in the game, and it looked pretty good. Other than that, he's been just a real non-factor in this offense, and it's been kind of shocking because he's healthy. Like, he's completely healthy. You can't say he's not. He's starting to get, I think I got the vibe in the locker room, he's starting to get a little annoyed at all the questions about his lack of stats, and he was like, everybody just wants you to get 100 yards every week, and when you don't, it's like you're having a terrible game or whatever. But the reality is he hasn't made an impact, and Braylon didn't as much this game either. They got away from the run, and so I'm sure that's a part of why the rushing attack was so bad, because they fell behind so quickly that, when you're down 17-0, it's pretty hard to justify running. But, I don't know, you got to figure out a way to get these guys the ball and you got to get them going. The run and blocking has been really bad as part of it. But this was going to be a team that was going to establish the run. This was going to be their identity. That Saleh, in that quote, I didn't have the whole quote because in the moment sometimes it's hard to get like every line of it. He said something like, throughout camp we were really optimistic on our running game. It was like going to be the strength of this team. It just hasn't been since those first couple of games when Braylon Allen really broke out more than Breece. So you hope they can get
it to be for Rodgers, right? Because if Rodgers is throwing the
He's
ball 54 times a game, he's going to get hurt.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. I mean, Aaron Rodgers at 40 years old should not be throwing the ball 54 times, but you also can't be trailing 17-0 every week. So it's going to be very interesting to see how they try and figure this out. I thought, Malachi, the idea with him was he was going to be like a guy who can help you in both the running game and passing game. I don't know if there's something there. I know fans are really passionate about him playing over Xavier Gipson on offense. Xavier had a good punt return today that set up a scoring drive, but the running game has been an issue, and the inability to even get the short yardage in this game, even when they put in Braylon Allen, which was the whole conversation coming out of last week when Breece got stuffed a couple times. At least they didn't run the Solomon Thomas package again. They got to the goal line a couple times or a couple short yard plays, and they didn't bring Solomon Thomas out there and run a passing play to him on third down. So progress, I guess. But yeah, if this running game doesn't get going, I'm not very optimistic about this offense. It's funny. Maybe I jinxed it, but the first like 3 weeks, I kept saying to you, like, I'm more worried about the defense than I am the offense. And then here we are back at like the exact same spot we were a year ago. So it's alarming. And you sense that, and there's a quote from Quincy Williams. I'm sure we're going to address it at some point between now and the fourth down. But I know fans are pretty frustrated with Saleh. And if it keeps going down this path, I think the players might start getting frustrated with him too if they're not already. I'm not saying that there's discontent in the locker room. If this game was more of a blowout, I think there'd be more quotes like Quincy's that came out of there, I would say.
All right. Speaking of that, we'll get to Quincy in third down.
Third down.
All right. Quincy Williams after the game, courtesy to SNY for this one. He was talking to them, and this is what he had to say about the team. He talks about the team overall, but you can kind of read between the lines that he's talking about some specific things here.
You guys were down 17-0 at one point. You guys battled back to the end. What does it say about this team?
I'm gonna be honest, man. People get tired of hitting the same. Taking accountability from the top to the bottom. That's the main thing, bro. That's all I got to say for real.
All right, let's talk about the fumble recovery. What happened there?
Just lost my battle, man. I gotta get that one to the end zone, bro. When my number get called, bro, that's it.
What's the mentality of this team right now?
Like I said, people gotta start taking accountability, bro. People get tired of hitting the same thing every week.
For you, what do you need to work on?
I'm tired of saying the same thing every week. For me, I need to start working on being a leader more. That's the main thing.
All right, thanks, Quincy. I appreciate it.
Appreciate you for having me.
All right. So there you have it. People have to take accountability. That's a word that we've heard a lot the last couple of weeks, right? When we talked about the offensive line and accountability for jumping off sides a week ago, and now we hear it again from the defensive team. It's not great chatter in the post-game locker room.
Yeah, you could interpret what Quincy said, I think, in a few ways. There's the angle of the coaching staff needed to take accountability for the way the defense not prepared. Am I still here?
You're cutting in and out. 1 second.
Bad hotel Wi-Fi again. I apologize, guys.
Yeah, I get you now.
Okay, good. But yeah, I think you can interpret that as him saying that the coaching staff needs to have guys take more accountability. And I think there's also a part of it where the defensive guys are frustrated with the way the offense has not held up their end of the bargain. And so, it's just something to keep an eye on as we go forward and as this team goes ahead. If the defense keeps carrying the load and the offense doesn't, like, this is going to be the third year that that's happened. And it would be hard to blame these guys for being frustrated.
So the defense was great against Sam Darnold, right? He was Sam Darnold. He was the Sam Darnold Jets fans are used to seeing. 14 of 31, 179 yards, an interception, no touchdowns. They got big plays from, how about Eccles? Every time he gets a chance, he gets in there and he comes through with the big diving interception. Justin Jefferson, 92 yards, which isn't terrible, but only 6 catches. They kept him out of the end zone. I mean, you look at all those numbers, and we've been doing this for years with this defense, you look at the defensive numbers. They also sacked Darnold 4 times, hit him 7 times. And it's just clear that, like, okay, we're looking at the box score. The defense played like that. The other team's offense put up these numbers. Clearly this was a win for this team, but it wasn't.
Yeah, I mean, they made Sam Darnold look like the Sam Darnold from the Jets. He was making some of the same mistakes. The Vikings had some confounding play calls, I should say. There's a 3rd and 1 and 4th and 1 series where they took 2 shots down the field and they were in Jets territory. I was talking to Alec Lewis, who covers the Vikings for The Athletic, and he said that's kind of I think goal line stuff sounds like has been a blind spot for Kevin O'Connell, who has otherwise been, pretty aces for them. But the defense, they weren't perfect for sure. There was definitely moments. They had a few too many defensive pass interference penalties. I think you could argue that many of them were kind of BS and kind of ticky-tack, and it felt like Justin Jefferson was getting like the LeBron James treatment a little bit. Saleh called out one with DJ Reed where he felt like it was an interference, but the other ones were all kind of questionable. But at the end of the day, they were called for them. So yeah, I think Sauce was called for like 3 different ones. DJ Reed, 2 of them. That's a little too many you just look at the number. It's too many. Like you can question.
Yeah, and that caliber of cornerback too.
Yeah. But they overcame that. They overcame Sauce, missed a chunk of time he was getting evaluated for concussion. Michael Carter II, he hurt I'm blanking on what part of his body it was. He got hurt during pregame warmups, and I think he tried playing through it in the beginning, and then he was taken out of the game. And so you had those two guys. Like you mentioned, Brandon Echols, it seems like every time he subs in for Sauce, he gets a pick, which is like kind of funny because Sauce is his one like ding against him is that he does not get picks. Like he just hasn't happened. He had dropped one. He actually dropped one in the end zone in this game. A lot of drops from the Jets in general, mainly from Allen Lazard. But yeah, but anyway, they overcame that. Will McDonald got another sack. It was like a really good sack, chasing down Sam Darnold, uses athleticism. I think they had 4 sacks total. Leonard Taylor had a really good one. Quincy Williams had a good game. He recovered a fumble. I think he probably wishes he scored on it, but Sam Darnold chased him down. Yeah, it's hard to blame the defense for anything that happened in this game. Again, they held one of the best offenses in the NFL based on stats through the first 4 games to 16 points. And so when that happens after last week, they only gave up 10 points. That's back-to-back weeks, less than 20 points, and you're losing because your offense can't get it done. And I can't imagine what those guys are thinking because they just keep – it's just like they keep – I can't think of a good analogy right now. I'm very tired, to be fair. But it's just the same thing over and over and over again. And I can't imagine what those guys are going through in their heads.
We are recording after midnight UK time where Zach is. So excuses for being tired for sure. The one drive that I'll ding the defense on a little bit, fourth quarter, Jets cut it to 3, and the Vikings obviously get the ball, and they gave up the big pass to Justin Jefferson over the middle, and then one more big throw to get the Vikings into field goal range, and then they get the field goal to make it 6. It felt like if they could have just locked down that drive, right, and kept them out of field goal range, the Jets maybe get the ball back with 5 minutes instead of 3 minutes. They only need a field goal instead of a touchdown. But that being said, everything you said is true. The defense overall played well, despite a lot of things working against them. And I will say the pass interference calls that the Vikings were getting, it did not feel like the Jets were getting the same, even to the point where the decisive play in this game, the interception to end it, yes, it wasn't a great throw. It was inside when he was going back shoulder. Michael Williams didn't look back, but Gilmore was also kind of draped on Michael Williams, and I feel like Jefferson maybe gets a pass interference call there. I don't know, but yeah, a lot of tricky things there. That's it for the defense. Let's move ahead to the final stop in 4 down.
4th down.
We're going to end things on a positive note. We always try to do this, Zach. Try to send things off 4th down, maybe a positive. For this one, maybe Rodgers and Garrett Wilson started to click in this game. If they didn't, it's not for a lack of trying, because 22 targets for Garrett Wilson. I feel like Jets fans are everywhere saying, yes, target him 20 times every game. 13 catches, that's a career high. 101 yards, the touchdown late. No big plays, though. The longest completion to Garrett Wilson, 16 yards. And they did look out of sync early in the game, but maybe they just threw it enough times that they're trying to get things, or they're actually getting things going.
Yeah, I mean, 22 targets is like a bonkers total. That was like to the extreme. I think you would have been happy with 11 targets, but yeah, Garrett looked pretty good. He was again making a lot of plays after the catch. Like you said, if there's a positive outside of the defense, it's that him and Garrett are starting to get on the same page. There still was a couple that Aaron missed with him, but you're not going to complain about 11 catches for over 100 yards. It was a good touchdown pass. The rest of the receivers need to step up, and that kind of gets into the whole Devontae Adams discussion. I don't have a great feel for if that's a realistic possibility or not. I wonder, and not to get negative all of a sudden again, but I do wonder if Devontae watches that game and he's thinking like, is this the version of Aaron Rodgers I want to play with? Like, he did not look great. Like Rodgers was not throwing the ball down the field. The offense was pretty boring. Like, I know Devontae probably has a good relationship with Hackett, but I don't know. It's just something to think about, as he's considering these options, whether it's the Saints or the Commanders or the Ravens. Like, these teams that have pretty good quarterbacks. Not saying Rodgers isn't good by any means. For some of the reporting on Devontae has been about him thinking about beyond this year as well. So something to think about. But yeah, with Garrett, he needed that kind of game to get going. And you have Garrett going. You have one of your two-headed 2022 monsters, him and Breece getting going. If you can get Breece going too, I think this offense will get back on track. But, they need to both play well at the same time. We haven't seen that in a while.
Garrett was good. Lazard, not good. Had the touchdown, but other than that, the drops are back. I thought we had moved on from the drops, Zach.
Yeah, it seems like it's a week-to-week situation with Loza. He did get a touchdown today, so he's at 4, I believe, for the year. But yeah, the drops, like he had 4 catches on 10 targets. That's just not going to cut it. Like he needs to play better. This is kind of the Lazard experience. He's going to have a mix of good games with some really bad ones, and this was a really bad one for him. Mike Williams, he did not turn his head for that pass. I think Rodgers said it was underthrown, so I think it was more on Rodgers. But Williams, they paid this guy. Everybody's pretty hyped on him, and he hasn't made a huge impact yet. I know some of that's Rodgers. Rodgers not taking shots down the field, which is notable.
Didn't have time today, I'll say.
Yeah, didn't have time today, but yeah, you need more help from receiver. Garrett finally, played his role, and the rest of the guys did not. So if everybody can play well at the same time, the Jets would be good, but they have a hard time doing that, it seems.
All right, extra point before we say goodbye. The Jets right back at it with the Bills and then Steelers. We talked about this kind of when the schedule came out, that the Jets chose not to do their bye week after the trip to Europe. Man, they could use a week off right now. Although we saw what happened when they had 10 days off. So maybe not.
Yeah. Yeah. And I mean, as people point out, if you do anything with Robert Saleh's records, it's not going to come out good, but they're not usually good with longer rests. So, yeah, it's the Bills don't look great right now. They're coming off a bad loss with Rashawn McDermott, made some really bad decisions. He's getting mocked pretty relentlessly. But the Bills are talented, and they have Josh Allen. Jets have generally done good against him, but it's just something to think about. I think the Bills are going to be pretty highly motivated. Then you have the Steelers the week after that. So this is a really hard stretch. If you can get a win from the Bills, they'll technically be tied for first in the division, because that's where we're at right now. So that would be.
I mean, that's saving them right now. Is that
I
mean, the Patriots are awful,
AFC
and the
East
Dolphins
trash,
barely beat them. Like the division title that may be the easiest path to the playoffs.
Yeah. So this is a pretty crucial 2-game stretch. If they can steal one of these wins, then you can say that they're in pretty good shape. But we need to see it, and I need to believe that they can beat a team that's better than them, which they haven't done yet this season. So just something to think about. Yeah, this is going to be a very interesting week. Very interested to see how these guys talk. We're not going to hear from them again until Thursday, so have a few days. But yeah, they're coming off a pretty bad loss, pretty emotional one, and pretty ugly one, and in across the pond, and they're going to go back home and really they have a long flight home. They're on their way back right now. They have a lot to think about. And so I'm very curious to see how they respond. If they don't respond well, then it's not going to be good news for Robert Saleh, I would say.
I mean, the seat is hot.
Yeah.
I don't want to. We'll see how it plays out. But in the first half today, there was a point where I was like, would it be terrible to find a new coach now and try to salvage the season? But then they came back, and there were some decent adjustments. But like that said, man, the pressure is mounting for sure. All right. Well, Zach, I know you have a couple off days here. You're in Europe, so enjoy them. And we'll be back on, I don't know if it's Wednesday or Thursday based on your travel. We'll figure it out. We'll get it up on YouTube to let everybody know when it's coming. But thank you so much to everybody for checking out the 4 Downs edition of Flight Plan. We're in it together. The Jets continue to struggle. There's talent. It can be turned around. Keep up the hope, everyone. We'll talk to you later.